Hello and welcome to another video, and it's finally time for me to talk about Avowed. I purposely spent some time with Avowed since its release. I did not pay into the early access. I have just been playing it since its launch day. I've put about 15 hours into Avowed thus far to bring my first impressions of the game, and probably go a little ranty on this one, honestly, because I'm coming out the other side of what I've played of Avowed, really digging what I've played, and I do not understand the controversy surrounding this game, or the just hatred I see a lot of fellow YouTubers and people throwing at this game that I'm not seeing it as I play the game. So, but let's go ahead and we'll dive in and let's just talk from the beginning about what I think about Avowed. Avowed is set in the Pillars of Eternity universe, but it is more akin to, like, I would say this game reminds me of Oblivion. And I use that specifically rather than Skyrim, because I think Skyrim is a less fair comparison. Oblivion, I think, is a better comparison for this game. I would also say this is very much like, think how the Outer Worlds was kind of like a space Fallout. This is very much their version of what an Elder Scrolls game would be by Obsidian, and I think it works really, really well. It's not an open world game. It's a very much like an open zone game. Like, the areas that you are in are very open and explorable. There's a lot you can go and do. There's a lot of area and ground to cover. The game, I think, looks absolutely fantastic. It's one of the best looking Xbox games that I've played, and but it's not fully open world, and that's fine. I don't need every game that I play to be an open world game. But I think the biggest thing I like about Avowed, I think what really shines for this game for me, is its combat. Its combat is very intuitive. It very much lets you structure how you want to play a game. You're not tied to one specific class like any other one of these types of games. So what I mean by that is, like, you can literally, you're not tied to a class. You can put points in anything you want on the board. So, for example, if you want to be a fighter that also has mage powers, and that's kind of what I'm doing. That's how I'm playing the game. You can be a spellcaster, but also be a brawler, and that's fine. Like, the game doesn't hinder you because, oh, well, he put a couple points into the mage tree, so you're locked in as just a mage. That's not how Avowed works, and I think it's incredibly refreshing. And I hope going forward, something like whatever the next Elder Scrolls is maybe copies that idea, because I think it's structured more in a way that is more open to the player for how you want to create your character. And it leads to some very interesting combat that I think is more intuitive and more engaging than something like Skyrim or Oblivion or that type of game that I really, really enjoyed as I've played what I have of Avowed. I don't know how long Avowed is. I have no idea. I've seen people say like around 50 hours or so. Like I said, I'm 15 hours in the game, enjoying my time with it immensely. I think another thing that's really cool, the first companion that you get in this game, which is Kai, he's kind of this like blue lizardish looking guy, is voiced by the guy that voiced Garrus in Mass Effect. So it's also, I feel like that also helps when you're playing a game to kind of have this like voice that you know very well. If you're somebody who's played through Mass Effect like hundreds of times, like I've probably played through Mass Effect, the trilogy, at least 20 times at this point. It's a series I kind of play through once a year at this point and really enjoy. I'm currently in the process of playing through, doing that run right now. I'm on Mass Effect 3 right now. But again, as I digress, it's nice to have that familiar voice there. There's another character I've also gotten now. He's kind of a dwarf. He's a really cool character as well. I can't think of his name. The one thing I'll say about this game is, well, I think the characters are well written. Their names, just for whatever reason, do not stick for me. There's like an extra level of what I would call fantasy bullshit writing in this game, like where I think the story ideas and beats and elements in this game are really good, really fascinating, really interesting. But when it comes to naming things, I think the naming is just so on the nose fantasy, like by throwing extra Y's and I's and stuff and things, that I think that kind of takes you out of it a little bit. The other thing I'll say, like one of the negatives of this game is its performance. So I'm playing it on, I've played it on PC. The footage you're seeing is from the PC port of the game. I have also played it on multiple Xboxes. So I've played it on my Xbox that's hooked up to an OLED TV that has, you know, the high refresh rate. And that is my de facto like way I would tell somebody you want to play this game if you cannot play it on PC or have a decent video card that can handle the game. If you have an OLED TV that has the ability to do 120 hertz, absolutely that's the way to go. I have also played on the TV in the office here, which does not have that ability, and my experience was more poor there because you cannot turn off motion blur in the console port, which is a disastrous decision. You guys know on the channel I hate motion blur, and it is particularly egregious in this game. It is not noticeable when you're on a 120 hertz TV and you have that frame rate unlocked, but when you're playing on a TV like the one behind me, it is incredibly noticeable. And like it's bad enough that like I don't want to play on this TV in here because of how bad the motion blur is. It's something I really hope that Obsidian addresses and patches to take out, or at least give you the option to turn it off. On the PC, I mean, you can turn the motion blur off immediately, which is what I did. But that's probably the biggest detractor I've noticed in the game for me. But what I don't understand, and this is where I kind of want to get in the controversy around this game, is like there's a major controversy surrounding Avowed, and that controversy specifically has to do with like, is the game woke? Does the game have identity politics and stuff like that? There is the ability to turn on pronouns in the game. It is turned off by default when you start the game. Myself, I did not interact with that. I have no interest in interacting with that. I left it off. I haven't noticed in my 15 hours any other thing that I would consider woke. That I'm looking at and go, okay, like, and what I consider woke is going to be different than other people that play games. But like for me, I look at something like Dragon Age the Veilguard as an example of like, that's a fucking woke video game. Like when you're beating those identity politics over somebody's head, that's woke and that's going way too far in my opinion. This game, I don't notice anything like that. There is like, you know, anything that I would put in that like gray area, I feel is handled perfectly fine. And there's only one thing I've really run into in the game where I'm like, oh, okay. And it was more, and that was my exact reaction was, oh, okay. You know, and it's whatever. Like it wasn't oh, you know, like I see why people don't like this. I've not run across that in this game at all. And it leads me to this I think because of the controversy last fall, I think there's a certain subsect of YouTubers that grabbed this game and grabbed and ran with that headline and just buried this game to the ground and already made their decision last fall. Hey, when this game comes out, we're going to fucking hate it, no matter how good or bad it actually is. And I don't think they're giving it a fair shake. Because as someone who's played, like I said, I've only played 15 hours of the game, but I played enough to understand the concepts of the game. I played enough to know, like, hey, I think this combat's very good, for example. And I've seen other people post dumb shit like, oh, the combat in this game's bad or weak or lame or not intuitive. And I just have this reaction like, have we played the same game? Like, what about this do you find boring? Like, I don't know. I would challenge any of those YouTubers out there. I'm not going to name names, but like, are we playing the same video game? Because I feel like we're not. And we're just hating to hate at this point on this game. And I think it's getting a bad rap for those reasons. Whereas like, it's perfectly like, I get it. I understand. It's 2025. The Xbox as a brand is a broken mess. I'm going to have a separate video coming out this week about my opinions on that. But I think there is a group of people that automatically decided to hate this game for that reason, which I also think is unfair. Because again, Obsidian's probably worked on this game at least, when was it announced? I want to say it was announced to 2021 Xbox Showcase, and you know, we finally got it in 2025. I mean, that's actually, I think, a pretty decent turnaround in comparison to some of the ones that we get. So I'm enjoying my time immensely with Avowed. I think it's a tremendous game from what I've played thus far. It's exactly what I expected it to be, in terms of its story, in terms of like what it is. But I'm pleasantly surprised at how good the combat is and how deep it actually is, not to mention how you can kind of build your character to the playstyle you want versus, well, I got to go down this mage path or I got to go down this fighter path. And I think that's really awesome, and I think that should be commended. For me right now, this is one of the best games I've played this year. We'll see if my opinion changes like when I finish it, but I'm sure I'll have more to say on the podcast, as I play through this game and stuff. But right now, first impressions, 15 hours in, highly recommended. I'm also very excited for this game to come to PS5, because I think that it will do better. I think it will get a bigger and larger audience when it hits there than it is on the Xbox right now. And I know things are dire for the Xbox brand and the Xbox community right now. So, and like I said, I'm going to have a separate video this week kind of going over that stuff. But yeah, if you haven't had a chance to check out Avowed, I mean, Game Pass, pretty good offering right now of games on there, and I think Avowed's one of the best that they've put out on Game Pass. I think it's one of Obsidian's better games, so I would highly recommend it. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and until next time.